Guys, I wanted to talk to you today about coming out with a chronic illness, I mean. Yeah, the gay, lesbian thing, that coming out, that happened for me a long time ago. That's no big issue. It was the decision to come out as chronically ill that really, I mean, I struggled with it. I still struggle with it. I have had fibromyalgia diagnosed 6 years and longer than that, really. And for the most part, I've kept it to myself. I didn't talk about it. Obviously, I talked about it with my family and maybe some of my very close friends, but for the most part, I've kept it to myself. And I'll tell you why. I have a fear that people will judge me as less competent, less capable, because I have a chronic illness. And I don't think that fear is unfounded. I don't think that fear is unfounded at all. And I spent 6 years finding workarounds so that I could live in an able-bodied world without them knowing that I, couldn't get my body to work half the time. And it wasn't until really recently that I decided, you know what, I just can't live like this anymore. I mean, I still want to be able to do those things that allow me to function in the able-bodied world with everybody else, but I don't want to have to hide who I am anymore. And the bottom line is that I am living with fibromyalgia, and that's just the way that it is. I didn't want it. I didn't ask for it, and to my knowledge, I don't think I did anything to get it, but I have it. And let me tell you something. It does not make me weak. It does not make me any different than anybody else. I mean, this is my thing that I have to deal with, but we all have things. We all have things. Our crosses to bear, as my grandmother would have said. And I think that's part of what we're doing here on this planet, is learning to deal with the different aspects of our life, good, bad, and indifferent, I wish that I could say that my experience in sharing this information has been well received. And as I've gotten older, it has been better received. But when I first came out, when I very first was sick and I was more open about it, people judged me. First of all, a lot of people thought that I was faking it. Why anybody in their right mind would fake this kind of illness? I mean, I'm sure it happens, but I don't want to be on all these medications. I don't want to be at home in bed most of the time. I want to be out there living life with everybody else. And at the time that I was diagnosed, I was running a good-sized nonprofit. So type A personality. Like crazy driven. And that stopped. That came to a halt. And I had no intention of changing my life in that way. None. And I mourned for years about the loss of that career and the loss of other things too, including a relationship. Being chronically ill is stressful, and it's hard to talk about because you don't want people to see you as less than. But I think it's completely necessary to talk about it. I mean, do you know the amount of drama that I listen to from my friends about anything and everything in their lives? Why should this be any different? I mean, why should this be any different? I think we have to get to the point where we, the people, stop judging other people based on their physical capability. Yes, I realize that's pie in the sky talk. I realize that, but I have hope. I mean, I think it's changed a lot, and I think it's continuing to change. And I think if fibromyalgia hadn't primarily affected women, that there would have been a wider spread acceptance of this illness earlier on. But because it's an intangible illness, meaning that it's hard to identify it, doesn't mean it isn't there. It means we don't have accurate tests for it. And because it primarily affects women, I think the medical community was quick to sort of poo-poo it and say, you're just depressed, sweetheart. And that's a terrible thing to experience. I think the only way that we're going to get past that is to be open about who we are, about what we experience, and not to go on about it ad nauseum. Who cares? I don't need to hear myself complain 24/7, and nobody else wants to either. But I do think that we have to be more vocal in advocating for ourselves, for what we need. I don't think that hiding it necessarily makes us any better. It certainly doesn't make our health condition any better. And what it does is it prevents us from getting the accommodations that we need to be successful. And I'm not just talking about, myself or people with my illness, but people who have illness and disabilities of all kinds. It's taking a risk. There's no two ways about it. It's taking a risk. Talking about it with your friends and your family and colleagues especially is taking a risk. I decided it was worth it. I decided to take the risk. You may have decided differently, but I would encourage you to think about who you can tell. Because, first of all, we all need to be able to talk to somebody. Second of all, we can all influence someone in our little circle of people, the people that we're in contact with. Whether it's on a small scale or a large scale, we can have some impact. And I think by doing that, we can put ourselves in a position of advocacy, a position of empowerment. And that is a whole lot better than being in a position of victim. I mean, really, with today's technology, you don't have to leave your bed. You may not realize this, but I am actually in bed right now. You don't have to leave your bed to advocate for yourself. So, what are you waiting for? Come on, let's go. Let's get it on. I think we can do it. I really do. I think that we should have a national coming out week for people with chronic illness. You'd be surprised at the people who live with an illness, who deal with it every day, who haven't told you anything about it. And you may have all kinds of judgments about people that like they're lazy, or they're slow, or they're this, or they're that, and really what they have is an illness. So for those of you who don't have illnesses and who are able-bodied, I encourage you to be kinder and gentler to your neighbors. You never know when one of them is struggling just to make it through the next day. So, come on, join us. We can do this. We can do this together. I hope it's helpful. I hope you consider coming out with your illness. If you do, leave me a comment or tell me what it was like. I would love to know. You can comment here, or you can go to my blog and leave me a comment on one of the posts there. That's at healthadjacent.com. Talk to you soon.